Hello and welcome to this topic explainer video for FM examination. My name is Milind Date and I am the expert tutor for the FM. In this topic explainer video, I would give you some exam-oriented insights for approaching the numerical as well as narrative questions in the FM examination. Remember, this is not a teaching video, but I'm sure after watching this, you will get a lot of insights into how you should approach both these types of questions in all the sections of FM examination. Let's look at what I am going to cover in this video in terms of the agenda. So firstly, I'll deal with the numerical as well as narrative questions in the form of OTQ, which would be there in sections A and B of the FM exam. And then I'll deal with numerical as well as narrative questions, which are of constructive response types in the section C of the FM examination. Naturally, the numerical as well as narrative questions will be tested from all the syllabus areas. And that has been very clearly mentioned in the syllabus and study guide. Basically, if you look at the syllabus, you'll find that numerical and narrative questions in the section C of the exam are going to be mainly coming from syllabus areas of working capital, investment management, and business finance. So make yourself aware of these things. When it comes to numerical as well as narrative questions, students will have to reflect a different approach dealing with them. However, there's still some commonalities, common essentials that you need to be always remembering. Number one is time management. You should not indulge into too much of a time dealing with one particular question. Please note, especially for section C, the response options that are available to you for a particular requirement. It could either be word processor or a spreadsheet. In the answering of section C requirements, enough care has to be taken so that you structure and present your answer very well. Wherever required, of course, you need to take help from the formula sheet, which contains relevant formula for FM examination. However, please remember, not all the formulae will be listed in this formula sheet. So you've got to be very careful when you're learning to understand the formula list, which does not contain some of the formulae. Please take care of that. And also when you're preparing, as I'll illustrate after some time, you need to reflect your ability to use spreadsheet functionalities very well. So let's understand how the numerical questions in section A and B are generally set. There could be question types in terms of the multiple choice, where out of 4 choices, 1 is correct and the others are distractor. Number entry, where a box will be provided to you within which you have to type out a number. Or there may be a list of values given to you wherein you have to pick up the most correct one. And in both these sections, the OTQs, remember, are independent of each other. So if you get one wrong, it's not going to make you earn or lose marks on the other question. Now, typically for numerical examples, the data that you are likely to get in the examination would include a small para or maybe a couple of sentences about the concept to set the context of the requirement, There will be invariably some quantitative information given because this is a numerical question. And then there is a line which talks about the question requirement, followed by, of course, the choice of answers, which will also include distractors, especially in case of MCQs or multiple response type questions. The way a student is advised to follow a certain plan is, first of all, reading the entire information carefully, word by word. And this is where a lot of practice can help you. Understand what concept or which topic is being tested. And then try and make use of the numbers that are given to you. Students generally are found to immediately jump on numbers without reading the information or without reading what is getting tested. Once you identify the relevant numbers, then apply your logic about calculations or make use of a relevant formula to arrive at the correct answer. So therefore, let's see how the numerical OTQs will relate to sections A and B. When you're learning or when you're revising, first of all, identify relevant topics or concepts on which numerical OTQs can be set. And the best way for you to identify these is referring to the syllabus and study guide as well as the ACCA study hub. Because you will find in the learning objectives, the terms like calculate, estimate are used by the examiner. That will give you a sort of a signal that a numerical question could be set on that. In the CBE, some select formulae are included in the formula sheet given. One will have to be careful enough to practice a lot using those formulae, but at the same time, make sure that you learn and remember the formula that is not mentioned in the formula sheet so that you don't lose unnecessary marks. Understand logic behind the calculations. It's not enough for you to remember the formula and that's it, but understand the logic. For example, when you are calculating market value of debt and you are calculating the present value of the future cash flows related to debt, including payment of interest and payment of repayment of principal, you need to be very careful about selecting an appropriate discounting rate. Students are generally found to make mistake in this selection. Same is the case with valuation of equity. So if you are careful enough, there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to achieve good marks here. And for that, practice, according to me, is the only way that can help you improve your time management as well as accuracy of tackling the numerical sums both in section A as well as B. So once you are confronted with a certain OT question, I would recommend you to take a step-by-step approach instead of immediately jumping onto calculations and erring somewhere down the line. So first of all, identify what the information is given to you. Understand the requirement. You know, even if you look at the entire information, you may find that some data is relevant for the requirement, but other may not be relevant. At times, I can tell you the information, even in section A questions, could be a bit lengthy. And there is a possibility that the requirement could be multiple. So even if there is one question line, it may ask you to, calculate a couple of numbers for the examiner. Understand what kind of question it is. Especially, you've got to be very careful in answering number entry questions. The reason being, there is a rounding off generally required. And if you miss out on that, you straight away get a 0, even if your answer is correct, but not correctly input in the number entry box. Even currency is generally mentioned, if applicable, outside the box. So you're not supposed to type in the currency symbol within the box, just the number rounded off to the nearest of dollar, maybe to the nearest of $1,000, millions, whatever has been asked. Looking at it, use an appropriate formula if applicable, and then arrive at your correct calculation. Still, I suggest if you're in a doubt, you have the facility of flagging a question and coming back to the question to recheck again towards the end of the examination time. Let me illustrate this with September-December 2023 sample examination. A small piece of information is available to you here. Extracts from financial statements listing out revenue, cost of sales, inventories, trade receivables, and trade payables. Plus, some more quantitative information is provided. 10% of the sales by value or on cash terms. Purchases for the year totaled so many $1 million. And very crucial, you're supposed to assume a 365-day year. Now, after having understood the numbers that are given, followed by these small bits of information, let's look at the requirement line. You're supposed to calculate. Calculate what? Inventory holding period, trade receivables period, and trade payables payment period. As I said, this is a multiple requirement, asking you 3 calculations, and you're going to get only 2 marks for that. Now remember, even if you get 2 right, but 1 incorrect, you're going to get a 0. So please be very, very careful in understanding the requirement and answer all parts of the requirement. The rounding off, which I said, here the instruction to you is all calculations should be to the nearest day. So naturally, if the answer comes out to, let's say, 49.55, you should round it up to 50 days, so on and so forth. Now, for calculating the working capital related ratios, these formulae are not listed in the formula sheet. So again, as I said, a lot of practice of numerical questions on each topic in the syllabus is a must. For which, of course, you could refer to ACCA Study Hub that provides you a lot of quizzes, a lot of practice questions, which are of OTQ type. Now, I'll just give you a simple way in which one can approach answering this is making use of a scratch pad and calculator. Now, when it comes to using calculator, you have 2 choices, either the one that is there available on screen, or you may use your own calculator, whichever suits to you, whichever you have practiced a lot on, please make use of that. Now, just take, for example, when you're trying to calculate the inventory holding period, it is simply dividing the value of the inventory by the cost of goods sold per day. So we need 2 numbers. One is the value of inventory, which is available in the given information, $226 million, and the cost of goods sold. For the full year, it is available as $1,612,000. So we divide this by 365 to get cost of goods sold per day, and then divide inventory amount by this cost of goods sold per day. Similarly, you can arrive at a receivables collection period, and trade payables payment period. So in Scratchpad, my advice to you will be don't type too many details. Once you zero in on a certain numbers that are relevant to calculate inventory period, holding period, you simply type in those numbers. For example, I have taken inventory 226 and divided by 1612 by 365. Now, if you see the calculator, it shows me 51.17, etc., etc. But I have understood the instruction that I need to round it off to the nearest day, which means here I should input the answer of 51 in the number entry box that I am given. This will illustrate to you how effectively you can manage your time and arrive at correct answers. Similarly, you could do the remaining two calculations. I have seen the examiner's report on this particular question, which says commonly seen errors included using purchase figure instead of cost of sales for inventory days. You can't use purchase here. Or for not adjusting the revenue figure to remove cash component when you are calculating the receivable days. Total sales minus 10% cash would be your credit sale, which should be the figure that you need to take to arrive at receivables collection period. But that is what you need to remember a lot. And therefore, it makes a lot of sense for you students to please go through examiner reports for all the previous FM examinations. Let me illustrate to you a question from section B here. Now, what is the difference between section A questions and section B question? For section B, there is a common information available based on which 5 questions are set. So data available for each requirement may be available in a scattered manner, and you will have to show your skills to identify it with regard to a specific requirement. Here in this case, there is an opening para that provides you some details about the cost of equity of the company, the dividend growth of the company, and also the industry within which it operates, having some average price to earnings ratio and the nominal value per equity. Then there are extracts from the financial statements, both profit or loss account as well as balance sheet. Relevant numbers are available. And the closing para talks about the long-term borrowing in terms of loan notes that the company has issued, and the coupon rate as well as the redemption conditions are mentioned there. And the cost of debt is also available to you. Before tax cost of debt. That's careful reading. Let's look at one sample question over here, one requirement, which is asking you to calculate the value of the company using price to earning ratio method. Price to earning ratio method. So examiner has given very clear instruction of what method you have to use. There is just one calculation. So it should take very little time if you have understood and practiced the section F of the syllabus that is related to these calculations. Formula sheets here also does not list the formula. So only learning and practicing the whole syllabus would come to your rescue. Value of a company that is based on price to earning ratio is very, very simple. You take the total earnings and multiply that by the price to earning ratios. Now, therefore, you need 2 numbers to answer this question and get 2 full marks for that. One is the earnings. And the total earnings, as you can see, you can find out from the information that is given here, profit for the year, This is always profit after tax. And the second information that you require is, of course, the average price to earning ratio for the industry within which the company works. And that is over here 11 times. So once you identify these two numbers, a simple multiplication, and you get an answer of 198 times 11, that is 2178, which happens to be choice C. So without getting into a panic kind of a situation, if you look at the given information, link the task requirement to the information to get relevant numbers and make simple logical calculations. Where students can go wrong in this case, examiner has identified that as well. Number of candidates incorrectly applied the PE ratio to the retained profits and not profit after tax. Some candidates multiplied PBIT by the PE ratio. Both are incorrect. But if you wrongly calculate and you find the number included in the choices, you may wrongly select the choice. So need to avoid that. Please make sure that every bit of information is properly understood by you. Let's look at now the numerical questions given to you in section C of the examination. Section C scenarios, friends, are generally a lot more comprehensive compared to section B. And as I earlier said, the questions in section C are generally based on either working capital, investment management, or business finance, or a combination thereof. What you need to do, of course, is to carefully identify information related to each of those requirements. The total question is for 20 marks, maybe therefore split into sub-questions as such. Now, data for each of the requirement may be available in a scattered manner. Some bits from maybe opening para, some bits from the middle of the scenarios, something from the concluding para. Because we are tackling the numerical question part over here, needless to say that question C will ask you to make use of spreadsheet functionalities. So whenever you're making calculations, you need to show proficiency in using spreadsheets, especially use of formulae in terms of various functionalities like net present value or IRR. But that's in the end. Actually, a lot of care has to be taken in ensuring that you structure or tabulate your information very, very proficiently. I'll just show you one of the exhibit. I have already pre-populated those numbers. It's again from the September, December 2023 sample examination, where this section C question is based on net present value calculation. So based on my understanding, I have structured this answer in this particular manner. Please remember, once you structure, you can't add or delete either a column or a row. So think 10 times before you actually structure your answer. When you're inputting the numbers, make sure that you type in the requisite formulae therein. It could be, for example, equal to A2 multiplied by B2 or something like that. This is because marker should know where the number in the cell has come from. So even if you make a mistake there, own figure rule will apply and you could get some marks for that. If you directly input the number and you get it wrong, it's very difficult for marker to understand and award any credit to you. Now, once I perform the calculations, you should save a lot of time of using the present value numbers from the present value table that is given to you, but simply use the net present value formula, which I have made use of here. Now, when you're looking at the NPV formula, you should take cash flows from year 1 to the last year separately and give the NPV formula. For example, in this case, it's equal to NPV into bracket. First, write down the discount rate, like here it is 11%, and then provide the range which I have given here as C12 to G12. So that is what will be typed in the cell, and then that will give you the value of NPV here. So make use of spreadsheet functionality and make your answer look like a real professional answer. But for that, of course, you need a lot of practice. What has examiner identified over here? Examiner says students are found to miss out on certain costs to be taken into account. That will naturally result in a wrong net present value. Or you may inflate the incremental cost incorrectly. For example, if you're given that the fixed expenses are likely to be X value in the year 1, don't apply inflation percentage to year 1. Apply it on year 2 onwards. They may not, put tax liability in the correct time period. So therefore, you need to identify if the taxes are paid in the year in which the cash flows arise, or it's paid 1 year in arrears. So these are some of the very crucial aspects about the numerical calculations of NPV. Invariably, please remember, the examiner may also ask you, calculate NPV and comment on its financial acceptability. If you calculate NPV and leave the answer at that stage, you are going to miss out on some marks that are going to be awarded for justifying financial acceptability. You may just write one simple sentence that NPV being positive, the project seems to be financially viable, but you could get a crucial 1 mark for that. So that's about, understanding and answering numerical questions in all 3 sections of the FM examination. I'll now deal with some of the aspects of narrative questions. Firstly, the narrative OTQs. Now again here, background information is no doubt important, and understanding of what is being tested. So you should correctly identify what's being tested. Otherwise, you may again confused, given that distractors may seem a bit confusing to you. Identify the keywords, understand the context, and of course, as I always say, the question type. The context could be a particular concept or a particular topic. Now here you may have to be careful as examiner may use the words like which one of the following, or which 2 of the following, or which one is not correct. Wording like this is very, very important for you to understand. Let's illustrate a question from, again, September-December 2023 sample examination. It's a case about a charity that was set up with the objective of cleaning litter from all beaches within local area. So that's a clear case that there is no quantitative information in here. As I said, you've got to be careful in identifying 2 of the following. So there are 5 alternatives given. 2 of the following would best fit with effectiveness in the value for money audit. So the concept that is getting tested here is VFM. And VFM talks generally about 3 E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. In this particular case, it refers to effectiveness, which means achieving success on getting your outcome. And if you look at both these, all these alternatives, you need to look at which represents result. Average hours don't. Number of beaches awarded government's clean beach certification. This is final outcome related to effectiveness. And again, the last one, amount of litter cleared each year measured in tons. So obviously, the final answer is going to be B and E as the correct choices. Similarly, let's look at one more. Which of the following statements relating to capital market efficiency is or are true? So, capital market efficiency, that's getting questioned. And the question says is or are. So either one of the 2 statements could be correct, or both could be correct, or both could be false. And therefore, you need to have learned this concept very, very seriously when during your learning phase, and you should remember what does it actually mean in terms of efficient or inefficient forms of capital market. Now, in this particular case, the share prices take several days to respond to new information in a weak form of efficiency. In the weak form of capital market, technical analysis cannot produce an abnormal gain. So here, of course, while it is correct to say that technical analysis won't produce abnormal results, because it talks about the theory of capital market efficiency, it talks about the speed of the information. It rather does not talk about speed of information, but it talks about how the market adjusts itself to the available information. Naturally, therefore, it's only the statement number 2 that is correct, and B is the correct choice. The first sentence is not correct. Let's now quickly look at section C, narrative questions. Here also you need to understand first, it's not OTQ. Apologies for that. It has to be CRQ. It's a typo. Fine. CRQs identify again the concept that is getting tested, the verbs that are used. Generally, for narrative questions, the verbs used at FM level are explain, discuss, compare and contrast, assess, etc. So you look at the meanings of these verbs, and ACCA has provided a guidance note on the meanings of these verbs. What do they mean? What do they expect the students to perform? Number of relevant points that you should make should be related to number of marks that are available. General guidance, of course, is 1 mark per relevant valid point, but there could be 2 marks for a very well-developed point. So whenever you get a narrative question in section C of the examination, you must not write your answers in general terms. Rote learned answers will not help you get marks, but you need to exhibit your ability to connect your knowledge to the given scenario and make it much more relevant as such. So let me give you a sample of how this could be tested in the FM section C of the examination. Compare and contrast sensitivity analysis and probability analysis as methods of assisting investment decisions when there's more than one possible outcome, right? So let's identify key words and key phrases from this. The first itself is compare and contrast. Comparing is trying to find out similarities, and contrasting is trying to identify the differences between two variables or two concepts that could be made use of by the management while taking decisions. The next important thing, which are the two concepts that you need to compare and contrast: sensitivity analysis and probability analysis. And these two are the tools that the company is, of course, using to assist them in arriving at their investment decisions. But don't leave it here. The crux is that there has to be more than one possible outcome. Accept or do not accept. Sensitivity, of course, is measuring a change in the project outcome, like NPV, for a given level of change in any of the project variables, taken one at a time. And probability is like finding and estimating the likelihood of different outcomes that are likely to occur. Both the tools, of course, are involved and can be used in investment decision making. Well, sensitivity does not consider probabilities. In the earlier example that we solved, numerically said that NPV has such and such value, and sensitivity to a change in contribution could be X percentage. But that does not mean that it tells you how much probability is that it's likely to happen. But in probability analysis, likelihood of occurring is estimated, thereby giving you a sort of a better decision advice. Sensitivity in itself is not going to advise you to take a decision. Sensitivity, of course, helps you in quantifying NPV's vulnerability, but it doesn't tell you whether the project should go ahead or not at a certain given level of sensitivity. But probability helps you to identify expected NPV, and should the expected NPV is positive, you should go ahead. Now, this is theory. What you need to do is to bring in the numbers from earlier calculations and the information that is given to you within the scenario, and then support that answer of yours with these numbers and other pieces of information. And when it comes to number of marks, this was available for 6 marks. So you should have made 3 points and developed them very well. So before you start putting in your answer, look at 2 concepts that are getting tested, the context for that and the verb that is used. Well, examiner here also has identified some of the weaknesses of these tools. And what it says is, unfortunately, candidates' responses were too short, expressing little more than a definition of each type of analysis. And therefore, naturally, they won't get good marks. Responses were often of variable quality, and number of answers often disorganized, poorly expressed. I mean, just enumerating a list of points is not going to help, because the verb used was compare and contrast. So what we have done in this video, in short, is to have a look at how a student, well-prepared student, is capable of tackling both numerical as well as narrative questions in all three sections of the FM examination. You all therefore remember the skills that are required to tackle both these type of questions are different. Learn these skills during your learning phase and practice a lot of variety of questions using ACCA Study Hub and the other resources, past exam questions, mock examinations, which will help build confidence. Undoubtedly, in the end, the comments made by examiner in its report would provide a lot of better insights to you to avoid common weaknesses that were exhibited in earlier exams by other students. So with this, I come to end of this video, and I'm sure watching this video would give you a lot of insights and a lot of tips to make you pass in the upcoming FM examinations. Thank you very much and happy revision